recording in progress. Okay, and we go to Facebook. Brilliant, 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 brilliant. So let me, I'm just going to control. All right. Okay.
Just don't know which ones are thinking of.
Okay, sorry everybody, it's just taking a wee bit longer today for some reason. Don't know why. That should be us now, Leona. Okay, so welcome back everybody. I'm delighted that we have so many returning on the third night. We have loads of messages. They say people can't come to the third night. That's fine. Hopefully you still have access to your, brilliant Leona, you have access to all your replays anyway, so you probably watch the replay. There's a replay link, I think, in the emails. So if you haven't, for anybody that's joining us or can't join us for the third night, they can see the replay, and anybody that hasn't seen the second night, they can see the replay as well. Fingers crossed that that serves you well. So the first thing that we are going to do tonight is a small recap and check on any questions. So we talked about these three principles over the last two nights, and these three principles that create or add to emotional overwhelm. And we began by talking about the overall idea of disunity and the levels of disunity, and how disunity, complete disunity, can cause as much havoc because you don't know what's happening until it has happened, or until you're in behavior, so you're not aware of your body. And then we talked about the different types of disunity, disunity with dis-ease, resistance. And we know that resistance is like a small child needing attention. The energy that resistance brings is a persistent, consistent kind of energy. It's a gnawing energy. So when we talk about why these things create turmoil, we're not just thinking about the theoretical principle in it, we're thinking about the energy that belongs to it. So the energy that belongs to disunity is a nothingness, is a until it's too late, until it hits you up the fist, until you're exposed to it, and you're feeling out of control with whatever it is that has arisen in you, or maybe it's the behaviors. And the energy of resistance energy can be really heavy. It can be kind of like, you know, it can be kind of an energy that is that gnawing energy, but it can kind of be like a low level anxiety. Has anybody ever experienced the resistance to an emotion, like a low level kind of anxiety? Is that familiar for you? So when we understand these principles, we understand the energy within the principles, and then we understand the additional energy in the body alongside the emotion, which is why we're understanding how it creates emotional turmoil. So when we understand, we're still in principle one, which is disunity, and then we understand if our nervous system gets really reactive to an emotion, then, and sometimes our nervous system can get really reactive to the nervous system itself. What we're talking about is the energy of that, because that is a whole entire different gamut of energies, because it's also physical feeling. It's also, I mean, there's so much in nervous system activation from an energy point of view, from a physical feeling point of view, from a somatics point of view. There's so much in that. So when we talk about emotional turmoil, it's easy to forget that there's an emotion at the core of it. It's easy to forget that there's a primary emotion, that there's a primary sensation, that there's a primary problem. Because even just in the first principle, there's so much other energy swirling around it. There's so much other energy created from just that one emotion. So then we move on to principle 2, which is the wrapping principle. And regardless of your wrapping, regardless of the levels of wrapping, generic, specific, or core wrapping, the detail of that wrapping can cause another layer of emotion if that wrapping is, if it's difficult, if it's painful, if it's shameful, if it's blameful, if it's, doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter where it comes from. We can always source it, but in the moment of it, we always know where the wrapping comes from. I mean, the work that we did last night, as an example, was amazing, Rachel. To see its source was the beginning of it, but then to really challenge it. So we're going to talk about that later. So that energy of that wrapping, you know, can be very, very, very difficult. So we're starting to layer up this understanding of the emotional aspects, the somatic aspects, the physical aspects, and the general energy that we're holding when one difficult emotion or emotions that we don't like, core emotion, is born. So we get this overwhelming sense that there's just too much energy in the body, there's too much going on in the mind, there's too much, and that's fundamentally what emotional turmoil is. So they were the first two principles, and the third principle was this core emotion, and understanding the depth of that as a felt sense. The intensity of core emotion is very, very, very painful. And so we understand this intensity that builds in the body and the intensity of the experience in the mind. And then the fourth and final principle is how we soothe ourselves, how we treat ourselves. So the difference between that and wrapping is how you feel about the feelings, and what you say that the feelings will do to you, what you believe they're likely to do to you, or what you believe they're likely to mean about you. But self-soothing is different. Self-soothing is how you treat yourself in relation to them. So self-soothing is the fourth and final principle. And it is how you treat yourself in difficulty. And if we can imagine, is there anybody here that feels that they treat themselves well? Because that may be the case. This is why we're doing these tests, so that we can really solidify where our emotional overwhelm's coming from. And I know some people, I know Jenny was last night, she was saying that I could hear her vocabulary around how she treats herself, what she says to herself, and that's a really good sign. But I would imagine that most of us are here because we don't treat ourselves too well. So I want to spend a wee bit of time understanding that, breaking that down, really looking at that in detail, but also going back to the principle of what that energy is like in the body. When you don't treat yourself well, what's that energy like in the body? Because like that cake mixture we were talking about, like that recipe, we're now adding another layer of emotional energy. We're now adding another layer of emotional intensity into the experience. If emotions just came on their own, they'd be easier managed, but they don't. They come with these multi-level experiences that we are trying to understand in ourselves and then strip away. So we've already got enough emotion going on. So let's look at what a lack of self-soothing looks like. Now, I want to be clear about where lack of self-soothing comes from. It comes from how we're co-regulated. It comes from how we're treated. It comes from how we're soothed as children. It comes from how we've learned to communicate with others about what's happening inside ourselves. And it comes from how they communicate back to us. But what I know for sure is this, is that in all the clinical hours that I've done and in all my own work, there was no greater voice than mine. That yes, that I didn't have a lot of emotional co-regulation, So what I put in its place was quite horrific. And as an adult, I continued that for years. So we're really looking at what we do to ourselves, how we treat ourselves. So the first principle is, what type of voice did you hear as a child? What type of voice? I'm going to give you 3 voices, and there may be other voices that you may have heard. So how we co-regulate it. What was the voice that you heard? Was there an absence of a voice? Anybody here where there was an absence? There was no voice. There was no one there to co-regulate. There was no one there to soothe. There was no one there to explain. It was void. It was a void. You had to work it out on your own. And you daren't talk about it. And you daren't bring it forward. And you didn't even try. Because there was something quite instinctual about knowing that there was nothing there. There was nobody there to actually co-regulate. They might have been there physically, but they weren't there emotionally. And so there's this absence. There is a nothingness. There is a knowingness that there's nobody outside you. So you have to handle this on your own. And in that absence, what normally happens for children is they add 1 and 1 and make 25. What normally happens for us as children, and it happened for me, is that we fill in the gaps. And they're often the worst case scenarios. And they're often catastrophic. And they're often bigger than we can ever imagine. So then in adulthood, when those emotions arise on us, we treat ourselves in these kind of catastrophic, filling in the gaps, making it bigger than it ever was ways. Now, what kind of energy comes from that is a lot of fear energy. A lot of energy in the body, the tightening of the throat, the tightening of the body, the tightening of the chest. And we're starting to really get a good look at where overwhelm. Look at the multiple levels of energy that come from these principles. Is it any wonder we spiral? Is it any wonder we try to get away? Is it any wonder we do what we do? So, is there anybody here? I'll just double check in the chat. Is there anybody here that would have experienced that? Just a yes in the chat. The absence of. Yes, yes, yes. And did you were you catastrophic with it? Did you catastrophize? How did you fill that in? Did you feel helpless? Did you feel that there was nothing you could do? Did you feel overwhelmed? Did you think there was no point? So no voice, Fiona. Yes, Nadia. Yeah. No voice. Yeah. Brilliant, Uma. And I got your lovely email today as well. Thank you. Brilliant. Yes. Absolutely. You became hypervigilant. You try to control it. No voice. Nobody there to regulate. Yeah. Absolutely nobody there to regulate. Nobody there to self-soothe. Nobody there to tell you it was okay. So the second type of voice is the critical voice, where there is a voice, but it's critical. And you come to that person, you come to that caregiver, hoping, helping that they're for them to help you with whatever's inside. And there is just criticism. Even if it's not direct, even if you're not directly going, it's insinuated criticism. It's, it's about other people, oh, there she goes again, bad with her nerves. There she goes again, oversensitive. So maybe it wasn't directed at you, but you pick up that message and knew not to bring it, knew that it had no place. Yes, Jill. Brilliant. You felt confused and blamed yourself, but felt intense anger. Intense anger is a really, really important emotion because there is a wrongness in not being helped. There is a wrongness. And so that your body and mind rising against what you know is not right. Really, it's a really good signal. Yeah, told you just get on with it, felt not wanted. Yes, Lou. And this will not be a surprise to you, right? But in the work that I would do when we're trying to get on the core, experiences, which sounds like a nightmare in itself, I understand that. But when we're trying to get onto a core emotion, and when we do get on there, you wouldn't believe the many people that had a core wound of not enough, of worthless, of emptiness, of whatever language that is, but worthlessness. And at the heart of that experience was a lack of co-regulation. At the heart of that experience was not having anybody who was there to soothe and look after. And so they internalized that lack of co-regulation as worthlessness. And that's the heart of the issue. The heart of the issue was this lack that was never given. And we often go and look for reasons for, we talked about this yesterday, big traumas, big life traumas. Often see this co-regulation. It's often the foundation of self-worth. It's often the foundation of confidence. It's often the foundation of worthiness. It's often the foundation of, and it's from those places this feeling of worthlessness starts. And then what happens after that, it snowballs. And because you can't put your finger on an event, because you can't put your finger on a time frame, because you can't put your finger on a timeline, you're left with this feeling that you've never really understood. And self and co-regulation can be, not always now, because it's so individual to everybody, but co-regulation can become so damaging to the sense of who we are. Yes, Lou. Yeah. And I know the great work that you're doing. So you must see that on a continuous basis. Absolutely. And if you have a hierarchy of need for love and connection, everyone needs love and connection, but some of us don't need it as much as others do. I know, Dubby sent me emails. That's just the way it is. There's hierarchies of needs within us. And if you have a hierarchy of need for love and connection, and you're not co-regulated, the first thing you'll do is turn that on yourself, because the need is so strong and great in you, and if it's not being met, then it has to be your fault. And therein lies. That sound helpful, Lou? Yep, that's that nail on the head. Brilliant. Okay. And then, are you all right? You okay? Grant. Okay. Yeah. So when we talk about self-regulation, we're not just talking about, they put it down to big traumas. I know, I understand that. And it doesn't have to be. It is what it is within you. And there's nobody can tell you what yours is other than you. You are the answer. You are the way. The pain is the answer. When you know the pain, then you know what it is and you know where it comes from. So when we talk about self-regulation and the energy from self-regulation, I hope that what I'm doing here is conveying the importance of it. And I hope what I'm doing here is conveying that it's not some watery back kind of there now, everything's okay kind of response. That it actually can affect how we see ourselves in the world and how we see ourselves in relationship with ourselves. It's so strong. So co-regulation becomes our self-regulation. So these voices become the voices that we use. So where there's a lack, where there's a critical voice, then the question I have for you is how do you hear that in you? What way does that show up in your mind? What way does it show up in your response to yourself? Do you blame yourself? Do you shame yourself? Do you hurt yourself? Do you push yourself? Do you tell yourself you don't deserve to be listened to? If you're worthless, you don't deserve a space. You don't deserve, yeah. And so when you're not deserving of the time, when you're not deserving of the energy, Now we've put non-deserving under the cauldron. Now we've put the energy of non-deserving in there. Disconnect and abandon yourself, Jill. Goodness is a better myself. The abandonment of yourself. Absolutely. There's another real important continuous issue that I see. The abandonment of self. And when you're not sure of love and connection, the first thing that you'll do is abandon your own needs. You'll abandon your own wants. You'll abandon, yes, self-sabotage. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the third voice that I want you to be aware of is, so the absence of a voice, and the third, the critical voice, and then the third voice is the hypervigilant voice. There are some parents that were petrified of their own emotion and tried to wrap their children or some caregivers that were petrified, and they were wrapped in cotton wool. Yeah, because everything, the real message there was, it's too much, it's too big, it's too difficult. Let's not let it happen. And in a way, I have seen so much damage with that as well, because there's no agency, there's no sovereignty, there's no trust. It's too much, it's too big, it's helpless, it's bigger than me. Anybody got that response when an emotion comes up? I can't handle this, I can't have it, it's too much, it's too big, what'll happen to me? And that can be the voice of an overprotective caregiver, an overprotective parent. Keeping you away, pulling you away, pushing you away. Because there's a real balance here, isn't there? And what happens to us as parents who haven't been co-regulated? We try to be overbearing. I have 3 boys, I know. We try to be overbearing. We try to wrap them in cotton wool. We try to keep them from emotion. We do our damnedest, don't we? And I have seen so many people. So brilliant, Bernadette, brilliant. I've seen so many people with that level of voice inside themselves, because, you know, for most of us, we're all, you know, adults heading on the, you know, good old years, like. So we're not living in proximity to those that have reared us, at least most of us aren't, but we're living with the voices. We're living with the responses. And so depending on, I'm hoping that from these questions that I've been asking you, you're understanding. So the question here is, you know, test 3, it's very simple. I mean, it's all laid out. Test 3. Do you soothe and look after yourself? A. Or do you hear, Bernadette, you really do you? You really look after yourself? Brilliant. Isn't that brilliant? But that's really important. That's what this test is about. Because look, if you're in emotional turmoil, you'll want to know what you have to attack first. And when I say attack, work with first. Undo first. Where's the biggest energy draw? So if we can see it in these tests, and like Bernadette saying, look, I'm good to myself. I, you know, have a good voice at times. I hear you said at times, right? Right? Brilliant. And you'll recharge when you need to. Brilliant. But that's a really helpful no. You know, no, I don't treat myself poorly. Yes, I treat myself well. So then that will be up something that you don't need to pay attention to. That is something that you don't need to work with. That's something that you don't need to, you know, if you have a therapist that you don't need to work with, that is something that you can park and say, that is not part of my emotional turmoil. But here's what might be, wrapping might be, so I'm going to go there first. Does that make sense? And that's why I'm doing this, so that you can compartmentalize what the issue is and then say, right, well, that's not a problem for me. That fourth principle is not a problem for me, but here is what is a problem for me, and I'm going to go there. And that's exactly, so I applaud your honesty with that, Bernadette. I think it's brilliant, right? Yes, Jill, it's being able to catch the body feeling, but that brings us back to unity. That brings us back to unity. If you haven't got unity, you can't catch the feeling. And that's brilliant. Now we're seeing the principles come together. We're seeing the importance of them come together. And yes, we might have unity, but we might be preoccupied and something hits us and we're out. Brilliant. I'm last in the list. Of course you're last in the list. If you weren't co-regulated and you were doing this to me, yep, that's my story. Of course you're last in the list, because that's the voice. Because that's the way it is. That's the way it was treated. Brilliant. Fantastic. Okay. So question 1 for test 3 is, do you treat yourself well? And for mostly, if you're saying yes, brilliant. Fantastic. Then there's nothing to see in this category for you. Maybe a wee bit of flexing better for yourself, but hey ho, who can't treat themselves any better anyway, right? And the second question is, are you treating yourself poorly? And maybe within that, are you treating yourself in the way that was treated? And possibly, are you treating yourself in any one of those voices? In that absent, scary voice where you're just filling it with fear? In that critical voice? Or in that kind of helpless, kind of all too much, all too big, all too difficult? Or does there feel like a mixture here? Is it a unique experience for you because of the unique way that you were brought up? And for a lot of us, we weren't brought up by, for a lot of people, especially if you lived in Ireland, you weren't brought up by one, you weren't brought up in a family. You were often, granny was a massive part of life, you know, extended family. So we are a product of all of that, which is really important. A mixture of all three. Brilliant, Fiona. Fantastic. A mixture of all three. Culturally, what did you hear? You know? Brilliant. But now we're beginning to see, I'm going to share this with you, and hopefully this will bring a clarity. Let me know if you can see that. Now I want you to start to see the energy that will come from this unity, the energy that will come from the lack of self-regulation, the energy that will come from wrapping, and how that creates this overall experience of emotional overwhelm. And the expectation that you have. So if we just type in the chat, right? What's the expectation that you have about emotional overwhelm? Brilliant, Anne Riley. So what's your expectation? What was your expectation prior to this, prior to these 3 days? Was your expectation that you shouldn't have overwhelm? Was your expectation that you should just get on with it? That it shouldn't take you 5 days to come out of it? That you're weak? What was your expectation? What did you call yourself because of this emotional overwhelm? Did you see it as clearly? Let me know in the chat. Did you see it as clearly? Too emotional. Belinda, I love it. Yeah, oversensitive, too emotional. Many times have you heard that, eh? That I should come out of it sooner. Yeah, you're too angry. Brilliant, Sharon. Need to go on medication to stop it. Love it. Shouldn't be happening. Brilliant. Yeah. To have an understanding of myself and move on. And how many of us are practitioners here? That adds a whole other layer of rubbish to the system. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm in the field, so I know better. I'm mad. Brilliant. Yeah, you beat yourself up for it. Oh, Tashin, I love that. Just keep smiling. Yeah, brilliant. Guilty about it. Okay. And so my job has been for these last 3 days to help you see with clarity in it, help you see the why. So my question to you is, can you see the why? Can you see why it's difficult? Can you see why for some people they're 5 days in it? It's, you know, it's a really, really, really important concept, because that in effect is some wrapping being undone. in effect, if you've got emotional turmoil, and the only thing that I've managed to help you with in this session, in these 3 days, is to not feel bad about your emotional turmoil, then I have done a tiny bit of unwrapping. If that's all I've done, I'm happy, because that will set the ball rolling. It'll take a bit of energy out of it. We're just trying to take the energy out of this. We're trying to take the emotional energy, the additional emotional energy, because at the heart of that, there's an emotion that wants to be heard and healed and can't even get a voice. Okay, brilliant. And hopefully we're starting to have a wee bit of compassion for ourselves. Brilliant. I'm delighted that it's clear. And a wee tiny bit of compassion. But we need to move beyond compassion. We need to start undoing this stuff, don't we? So understanding's the first stage. Makes sense, but where to start, Louis? I love it. Great question, right? So understanding, it's the first stage. Okay, so you remember the questions that I asked you. Let's go through them now, right? And let's see, I'm going to tell you what you need to do. Okay, I'm going to tell you, this is what you do here. If you've got this unity, here's what you do. If you've answered A, here's what you do. If you've answered B to this test, here's what you do. If you answered 3, I'm going to tell you point for point. If any of these are working with therapists, don't take the plan to them because you'll get chucked out. But I'm joking, they'll not. But consider that as your roadmap. Consider it as work that you might do yourself. Consider it if you've got coaches or therapists, or consider, working at some of this stuff as you identify it. Okay, but let's get specific first, because now you understand, but let's get specific about what you do. Now, at the end of this, I am, for the first time, going to open up a public course. I say that with my eyes closed and my hands over my face. Where I'm going to take you through the steps, all of these steps in a 6-week course. As most of you know, one-to-ones with me is out of the question. But what I've tried to do, because of the level of demand, is to begin with EM, begin with these principles in a 6-week course. So if at the end of this you're thinking, you might have support elsewhere, which is completely fine, and go do it there. You might think, I want to do this myself, which is fine. But if some of you wanted to come and work with me for 6 weeks and do the deep dive, then in a group setting, now it's not one-to-one, it's in a group setting. So some of these people that are here will be in the same group, and we would work for 6 weeks at doing some of the principles that I'm about to show you. Then we'll talk about that in a wee minute. But let's get the plan right first, right? Let's get it right for you first, so you can be in the best place to decide what you need to do for yourself. Everybody happy enough for that? So let's get the plan right. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to go back to test 1. Does everybody remember test 1? So I'm going to pull the questions up for you, all right? So test 1, does everybody have their documents for test 1? Now, what do we see? I'm going to pull this up. Unity was the one. Leona, you let me know if you can see this. That's all right. Okay. Here we go. Yeah, all good. Yeah, I'll just make it bigger now for everybody. Okay, so pen and bit of paper ready for you, all right? If you've answered yes to unity test 1, if you've answered yes to part A, then there is no unity. So there's literally no unity, that you spend most of your time in your head. Now, the remedy to that, the work that needs to be done in that, is a very slow work. The work that needs to be done there has two pieces to it. And there's 2 pieces to it. The first piece is slowly coming into your body. Things like body scans, You can get them free on the internet, right? Body scans. I would start out with the physical side of stuff, right? I would start with, I wouldn't go to emotions first. If you have disunity, then if you're likely to go to emotions, then you might go straight to nervous system activation. I would start, if you're going to do this on your own, if you're going to do this, I would start very slowly with, noticing hunger, noticing stress in your toes, noticing, tension in your shoulders, bringing awareness and mindfulness very, very gently to that is in your body, but is not emotion. Does everybody understand why I'm saying that? To bring awareness to everything that is not emotion first. You're just titrating in, you're just so gently coming into your body. And as you come into your body, your mind and body get connected again. And they learn to trust each other. Now, as you do that, and as you start with emotion, or as you start with physical sensations, you're just warming yourself up without scaring the living lights out of yourself. Yeah, you're just warming this, what we call psychosomatic connection up. You're warming your introspection up. Everybody is born with what we call introspection. Everybody is born with it. But what happens is that it gets shut off or becomes confusing. So we don't know what we feel, or we don't know where it is in our bodies, and then we get shut out. So when we do these body scans, when we do these kind of soft, gentle exercises, trauma-informed yoga is a brilliant practice to bring you back into your body. Any of those embodied exercises, and there's millions of them free on the internet. I mean, millions of them, guys, free, right? Just knowing what to look for if you're disunified. Soft and gentle. Don't go at the emotions all of a sudden. Come gently in if you're completely disunified, or if you're working with, if some of your family members are disunified. You don't want to scare them. It's called titration. You want to move them into their bodies gently, and then into the emotion. Once we've got used to the connections, our mind-body connections, then we can start to feel the differences in our physical feelings and our emotional feelings. Is that okay? So that's what we would do. Now, there's another facet, right, to that, and we call it metacognition. Metacognition is just thinking about your thinking. Anybody that's in any of our programs are rolling their eyes going, if she talks about metacognition one more time. But the importance of metacognition is absolutely vital, because if you can't see it, then you don't know what's happening. If you can't feel it, then you don't know what's happening. If you're not connected to your mind and your body. And metacognition is, what am I thinking here? It's awareness, fundamentally awareness. So that's all the answer, the unity work. So if you've answered yes to part B, unity, some unities, some disunity with certain emotions, then we just literally work on those certain emotions. Now, what does that mean to work on those certain emotions? Well, what it means is that you understand that the unity, the disunity that is required on those emotions, and we get closer to them. We try to get in contact with them. So it's one step above disunity, yeah? And it's unity, and we're trying to move, it's the same soft and gentle way into the feeling, yeah? Now, if you've answered yes to part B, then it is likely that you have wrapping that's causing you disunity. So the answer to that disunity is partly some of this soft and gentle body work, but it's also checking why you have disunity around certain emotions. And often when we check that, if you check that, it might be because of wrapping. And I know that's something we worked on last night, Rachel. You had a difficulty with one emotion Now, I'm going to come back to you in the next one because I think what we did last night is a classic example of how to unwrap, right? But if you've answered yes to part B, then often what I would tell you to do there is ask yourself why. What is it about that emotion that I don't like? What is it about that emotion that I can't have in my body? And what you should be able to see, and it's the same with part C as well, what you should be able to see is you should be able to see the wrapping around it, which is causing the disunity, which is causing the nervous system activation. Does that make sense? So for part B particularly, titration and date, soft and gentle and date, but it's also asking yourself a question beyond it, which is why? And checking if there's any wrapping there. Part C, if you've answered yes to part C, then your nervous system is your body is incredibly threatened. So there is a threat, an active threat in that emotion, which means that you have a fear of that emotion. And if you've got a fear of emotion, then we have to learn to regulate the body first. We have to learn to calm the body, regulate the body, work in the body. And listen, see if you Google regulation techniques for, if you Google, there's two types of regulation techniques. There's a thing called dorsal vagal. If you're shut down, if you feel that you shut yourself down, there's a dorsal vagal technique. And the other one is a grounding techniques. So if your nervous system is activated in part C, if you've answered yes to part C and you get heavy activation, then you need to learn to regulate that nervous system before your body will ever let you into any of that emotion. So that's two things I would do there. The other thing is there's almost certainly wrapping, and very threatening wrapping if your nervous system is highly activated. And Emer, this might make sense to you. So if your nervous system is activated by a particular emotion, then what that indicates is that there's a threat in the system. There's a threat. Your mind and body recognizes this feeling as a threat, and that threat may feel like it's life-threatening. That emotion might feel like it's life-threatening. That emotion might feel like it could hurt you or kill you or do something that is life-threatening to you. And that's why your nervous system is getting activated. So when you go to check the wrapping for that and check how deep that wrapping is and see. If you've answered yes to part D, you have full fluidity and regulation. You don't need this course at all. Nothing to see here. Yeah, fine. That's completely all right. Full fluidity, fan-bloody-tastic. You're in full fluidity. You can get into a feeling, you can get out of a feeling in seconds. You understand them, you know where they are, you have no wrapping around them, you have no dysregulation. You're allowed to sit in the feeling and feel the depth of the felt sense. And there's nowhere else to go with it. You're not in disunity with it. You're just in full unity with the feeling and understanding of it and being able to hear it, hold it, and heal it. Because that's the process. Once you get into unity and you've no wrapping, the process is hearing, holding, and healing. Yeah. So if you've answered those yes to those, now we're starting to really see where we need to go first. So my question now to you is, for you, Lou, when you're saying, I'm not asking you to answer it out loud, what is the most important part? Where do you need to go first? If you've answered yes to B and yes to C, where does it feel like you need to go first? So that you may have two things that you need to do in this. So my question to you is, which would be the most beneficial? So I'm not asking you to answer. You can if you want. You can. I don't want to put you under pressure, my love. So I'm just saying you can if you want, but
to be honest, I don't really know, because when I answered that question, the person that read it out looked like my stepmother.
Yeah.
And there was no love lost there.
Yeah.
There was that one. There's the not being good enough feeling that goes around it. So I honestly don't know where to start. There is so many different things.
Okay, so don't answer it now. Let's look at when we're finished, where you need to start, because it might be just core emotion you need to work with.
Okay.
We'll see. Okay, well done. We'll see. If the core thread is grounding and dorsal, if core thread is grounding and dorsal vagal enough, not even slightly, Jill, not even slightly. So the core threads, grounding and dorsal, will only ever regulate. It'll never take the threat away. But you have to start at regulation at some level, because you'll not get beyond that feeling. You'll not get into that threat unless your mind knows your body's safe. So when we ask the question, is grounding and dorsal vagal enough to take away a threat? No, it's not. Absolutely not. But what we're trying to do here is that we're trying to take away that energy, that the extra energy that's added to an emotion, so that we can hear it, hold it, and heal it. And dorsal vagal and grounding become part of this, not skill, but part of the toolkit. But they're not curative, and they're never going to be curative. They are regulatory tools. And anybody in the APP, we know that for sure. Yeah? Happy enough? Yes, Fiona.
Shauna, I would do a lot of the vagus nerve exercises, not the cold showers and the humming and things like that. But when I'm actually in fight, flight, or freeze, I don't think to do them. But my fear is always around children, always around grandchildren. And I don't seem to be able to come out of it for days. It actually drains me. But when their parents don't get on, I worry about them.
Yeah. So,
and I build a picture up in my head, and 90% of the time they're all right, but
you're worried just.
It's very frightening, yeah.
And inside yourself, you're worried.
Inside myself, inside my head, I become obsessed, and that can last for days on end.
And is that an active core wound?
It has to be an active core wound, but I even with all the training and the CBT I've done, I cannot get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. And is there a disunity problem?
Absolutely, I'm straight into my head.
Yes.
But my body's also in shutdown as well.
Absolutely. So you're in high dorsal shutdown.
Yeah.
So there's no other work other than unity work that I'd say for you. Nothing. Point trying. You are a classic example of answering your biggest issue being, and that's not less than or better than. That's where you start. That is exactly where you start. This is body-centered, embodied work. And trying to work in that dorsal state, to regulate that dorsal state in order to drop into your body, because the rest of it's not going to work.
No.
Not helpful.
No. Yeah, you've said that before. I'm in my head too much.
I know. I know exactly. It's you need that. You need the unity work. And you need to work on the unity work, as hard as it is and as difficult as it is. But more than just the unity work, also nervous system activation work, that dorsal shutdown, seeing, because that's a different exercise. That is not a grounding exercise. That's an enlivened exercise. That, if you're in high dorsal shutdown, that's an enlivened exercise. That's getting back and back into your body. That's not just slowing it down and being gentle, and that's actually, but what's interesting is, I'm just, anyway, that's where you are. So you stay there. So out of all of this, that's your primary concern. The rest of it is work that's keep you back in your head.
Yeah.
Okay. Well done.
Thank you.
No bother.
Thanks.
Okay. So let's move on to wrapping, beautiful wrapping. And let's see if we can, let me see, okay. Thanks, Fiona. I'm going- okay. Okay. So, next one. It seems it comes down to something so simple, isn't it, when we're going through these? But the intricacies of each piece of it is massive. You know, come down to these tests, 4 parts in the test, do this, do that. But the intricacies and the importance of what order, like you're saying, Fiona, there's no point for you to do anything else. Really, it's unity work, really, that would make a massive difference to you. So let us share wrapping. I think I've got here. Okay, so wrapping was really, really, really basic. We understood wrapping in 3 parts. Generalized wrapping, if you've answered A, if you generalized wrapping, if you've answered B, then you've got specific wrapping. And if you've answered C, you've wrapping around core wounds. The reality of it is, most of us, there's not any of us that wouldn't have wrapping around core wounds. Wrapping is part of the course. There's no one that really can sit in a core wound with ease, with fluidity. So, well, if we have wrapping around all emotion, generalized wrapping, then that's a big, broad church view of it, right? That's a looking at why, where it comes from. It's an understanding. And then seeking to do what I call unwrap, right? Now, we had a brilliant conversation last night. Let me bring Rachel up now in a wee minute. We had a brilliant conversation last night after in the coaching after the session. And in that coaching, will I make it bigger? Surely, Brita. Thank you. Thanks for the ask. Let's see. That okay? Is that better? Is that better now? Yeah. So the answer to A and the answer to B and the answer to C is all the same, right? Your job here, if you've answered A, B, and C, it's the outcome or the solution is all the same. You have to get very specific about what that wrapping is. Whether it's general, whether it's around particular emotions, or whether it's around core. You have to get very, very specific about what it is. What are you saying about that emotion? How do you feel about that emotion? What do you think that emotion is going to do to you? This will not work unless you get so specific. But here's the magic. See, unless you've unity, see, unless you can hear yourself, see, unless you can feel the feelings, it's nearly impossible to get so specific on your own. Which is why these are all interlinked concepts. Now, once you hear it, once you understand it, once you understand the wrapping. So I'll give you an example, and then me and Rachel will talk about what happened last night. Once you get specific, so my specificity of wrapping was, I am mad. I am mad. It is a sickness. This emotion is a sickness. It is an illness. It is inescapable. I will never be without it. It's continuous pain. And that rapping, I had to get really specific. It wasn't general, like I don't like it, I don't want it, it makes me uncomfortable, I want to get away from it, I want ease. That's not general, that's too general, that's not specific enough. Why do you have a difficulty about every emotion? Why do you have a difficulty about anger? Why do you have a difficulty about fear? What's the specifics of it? What is it in, what do you tell yourself about those feelings? What do you say? It has to be specific. I cannot stress enough. And you have to see the layers of it, because it's unlikely to be one thing. Your rapping is unlikely to be like one specific, I'm just afraid of fear. I'm afraid of fear because it's continuous. I'm afraid of fear because it will make me mad, because. Does that make sense, Steve? So if you're going to look at rapping, get into the specifics. And that's for every A, B, and C. It doesn't matter whether it's core, it doesn't matter whether it's certain emotion, it doesn't matter whether it's generalized. Now, there's a classic example of this last night in coaching, right? We had a coaching call after the live event, and Rachel and I did a wee bit of work. Now, this is what I call tug and pull, right? So I don't want you to give too much away. I want you to be very careful, Rachel, right? And I don't want you to walk away from here with vulnerability hangover. So keep what is safe and sacred, do you sacred, but and be very careful and mindful, about yourself.
Okay, thanks.
But Rachel, is it okay to say what feeling you were having difficulty about?
I'm actually quite an open book. I don't mind what you say. So, I mean, it will help other people as well. So I'm happy.
So Rachel, after the live call, Rachel said, can I have some help? Which is what our calls are about, right? Can I have some help with this rapping? And I said, right, okay, what's the problem? So the problem was anger. Yeah. And I was like, okay, tell me what your rapping around anger was. And she started to explain that she felt angry at herself for being angry. Yeah. So the rapping is, I'm angry at myself for being angry. Yeah. Sharon saying, yeah, I hear you, Rachel, I got you, right? I know, right? I'm angry at myself for being angry. And I was thinking, I'm going to push this a wee bit. I want to see more specificity here. And that's how it started, wasn't it, Rachel? I started pushing a bit.
Yeah.
Start more inquiry. And I was saying to Rachel, okay, tell me more about that anger. And then there was a story about where, and then I was like, so we were pushing back and forward. And then she said, let Rachel tell you what she said. I am
bad.
Brilliant.
I'm a monster when I show anger. And I don't actually.
I want you to stop there a wee minute. I'm going to let everyone hear that. So we went from, I'm angry about my anger. And I pushed her a wee bit to see if we could get some more. And she said, no, I'm actually angry because I'm angry at my anger because it makes me a monster. Because it makes me, what was the word?
Bad. I'm a bad person. Yeah.
I'm a bad person. I'm a monster. And I was like, oh, wow. Wow. There's the specificity of the rapping right in front of you. I am bad, I am a monster, and I am angry at myself for that anger. And then we started to push it another bit. And we could see where the source came from, couldn't we, Rachel?
Was the monster.
Yes.
There was a monster.
There was a monster.
Yeah, who was an angry, controlling, critical person. So I'd never made the connection with her. And so if I showed anger, it brought in all the other rapping, the guilt, the shame, the blame myself. And it was from there was fear as well. So yeah, I'm trying to have control. So it's very, very much about if I could control everything, which brings anger with it, then everything will be okay. But the flip side to that was the wrapping was causing emotional turmoil, that my line in my head was, I cannot find peace within me. No matter what I do, no matter how good I am, no matter how kind I am, no matter how many times I ask my husband or my kids, I still can't find peace within. I'm in turmoil. And I try, when you talked about, you had the circle with anger and then shame and blame, I was like, okay, if I can get rid of the shame and the blame and the fear, but still I'm like, that's not enough. It's eating at me. I've been to confession maybe 3 or 4 times in the last 6 months, waiting, and the priest said, yeah, I forgive you, 2 Our Fathers, 2 Hail Marys. And I said, you're not listening to me. I feel really bad. And it didn't work.
Yeah.
But
There
you
we go.
absolved me last night, Shauna, so
Well,
thank you.
no, I did not absolve you. You absolved yourself, Miss Rachel. I had no part. I pushed you and pushed you until
Yeah.
I heard it, because the real wrapping was shame for being bad, shame for being a monster. That was the detail of the shame. Shame is a feeling. Why does shame exist? So when I pushed Rachel to understand the anger that she had towards herself and the shame she had towards herself, she said, because anger makes me a monster. Anger makes me like her.
Mhm.
And
I was
then we went,
cruel.
oh,
Cruel, yeah. And I'm not cruel, but
no.
that's where the mentally the connection was, but the awareness wasn't there.
No. And so when we pushed at that and checked the truth of that and unhooked ourselves from that, what happened?
Oh, the relief. Oh my gosh. I actually feel now I'm going to be able to look after myself. I don't need my self-soothing things. It's like I feel now I can put myself first, that I don't have this guilt attached to, I don't deserve to be happy because I showed anger. It's really
Yes.
weird. Yeah, peace. I
Yes,
see there,
good.
peace.
Good.
Somebody's
So that
writing
shame
peace.
and
Yeah.
blame began to unwrap itself when you understood that you're not a monster for feeling anger, that you're not bad, that you let that go and that shame fell away, because that's what you saw. So you thought you were that, but that wasn't the context of your anger. The context of your anger was frustration, normal, fine, understandable under the circumstances.
Yeah.
And the camaraderie in that group was beautiful.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
many people rushed on
How everyone understood,
Yeah.
but it was, as I was saying, 2 people experienced the same thing, but live it differently then in their heads and their bodies afterwards. So my husband and I lived the same anger, but I was overwhelmed with being a monster, and he was like, you're not. But yeah, so
Fantastic.
yeah.
Rachel, that is so gorgeous.
you.
I want everybody to hear that. Herself and her husband lived with the same anger, but her husband didn't have the same wrapping.
Yeah.
He was more accepting of his anger than she was. She turned it in on herself and shame and bad, because it's what she saw as a child.
Yeah,
You see, the
definitely.
wrapping works.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Can
Thank
you all show some love for Rachel? Because that's very brave to do that, doesn't it? It's
Oh,
very
thank
brave
you.
to do that in a live forum like that.
Thank
Rachel, I lost your wee face. I can't see.
Oh.
there you are there, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
see you now.
Okay.
Amazing, Rachel.
Thank you so much.
And powerful. Now, there was
I
2
feel
things
healed. I feel healed. That's the best way to describe it.
for
I
your,
feel- And I had begun to notice when I was talking to people, and they'd, like clients, whatever, and they'd mention something similar about, anger in the family, I'd get this feeling of, oh my God, imposter syndrome. I shouldn't be here. I'm the wrong person to be talking to. I'm a monster. If only they knew. All these things were coming through, and that's all gone. It's like, I'm human. I'm a mother. I'm whatever, I'm human.
not that.
It's fantastic. It's just so cleansing. Thank you. Yeah, I can't thank you enough.
Good. So for everybody listening, there's 2 things that happened to Rachel there. One, that she was able to get so very specific about what the wrapping was. She was able to hear it in detail, able to hear it really detailed. And she allowed me to push her that wee bit on it, right? You see around the corner a wee bit. And then the second thing was that we challenged the truth of her being a monster. Now, tomorrow in your emails, you're going to get a link to a wee sheet that we call, it's called a cheat sheet. Leona's saying, are you getting that? I didn't know that until now, right? Sorry, Leona, but we'll find a wee place for it in the email somewhere. So there's a sheet that comes, and it's not a challenge, it's a, what's it called, Leona? Challenge and limit and beliefs sheet, right? And it just takes you through how to challenge it. So obviously we don't have enough time here tonight, right? Don't have enough time at all to go through what I do, Rachel, but I'm going to give you the sheet. So if you want to do it on your own, do it on your own, all right? So, because there was two things in challenging, it doesn't matter whether it's A, B, or C, there's two things to wrap in: specificity and challenge. That is what creates unwrapping. Getting really specific about it and challenging its truths. What was brilliant about Rachel is the minute it was challenged, it was like, okay, who turned on the lights? No, I am not her. No, my anger is not the same. No, my anger is not in the same context. No, my anger is not anywhere near that. Oh my God, who turned on the lights? And it was quick and it was easy, right? Now, are we saying that Rachel's free from all core wounds? No. But what we're saying is that the wrapping that was sitting around any of this has dissipated some way. Does that make sense to everybody? So two very, very brilliant things we wrap in: getting specific and challenging it. And you have a challenge sheet in your emails, all right, by tomorrow. So Rachel, I just want to, thank you, Rachel. Thanks for sharing. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Rachel. Hugs. How wonderful are you, Rachel? Great result, Rachel. Thanks for sharing. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Rachel. Powerful, Rachel. So it's really, really important. I get it. Peace will be lovely, Sharon said. I get it. So really brilliance. Yeah. Yeah, brilliance. Yes, Jill, absolutely. The anger years ago was worse than anything that happened to me, and that's why I can't tolerate it. Yeah, absolutely. I get it completely. Get it completely. And anger is one of the most difficult emotions, I think, culturally, that we have been wrapped, and we wrapped in such difficulty for years and years. So, okay, so the last but not least, and the last one is very, very simple, right? Because we've done that. What's your levels of self-soothing like? Are they good? And I love Bernadette's honesty. Yup, good. Or are they bad? Bad as in unhelpful. Bad as in not supporting. Bad as in not graceful, not compassionate. It's really, really, really simple, right? So when we understand this, that's the third test. Are they good or are they bad? And if they're bad, what levels of pain are you in because of that lack of self-compassion? Does that cause you the most pain? Does the wrapping cause you the most pain? Does the way you treat yourself cause you the most pain? Or does the nervous system activation and all of the resistance cause you? Where do you need to start in that gamut? Do you need to work on the wrapping around your core wound so that you can hear it better? In all of that, where does it feel you're led to? Where does it feel that you would even make a small dent on it? Like Rachel made a dent in that anger business. Now what that will do is that'll free her up in energy to do some other work. And I know you're doing some other work, Rachel. You're doing other work with a therapist. So that'll free your energy up to do some other work, some deeper work. Because can we just be clarifying here? We're talking about how to get into the emotion so that we can heal it. Yeah. We're talking about getting into the emotion so that we can transform it and heal it. And anybody that is here with core woundedness, it is virtually impossible to heal a core wound without doing all of this work. Well, this is what I call the proprietary work. This is what's called the prep work. So if you're sitting here and have identified a core wound through this course, which was Principle 3, It is nearly impossible. If that is your priority, if you're saying you are really, most of your emotional turmoil is because of your core wounds, then knowing how to soothe that, knowing how to unwrap that is going to be incredibly important for you. That is going to be your priority. And if you can do that, then you can get closer. Like Fiona, if you can't get out of your head to do that, yeah, then dropping into your body is going to be your priority. That's what you're going to need to do first. If you've got a unity problem, then dropping into your body is going to be vital, because you can sit in this stuff day in and day out, understanding it, intellectualizing it, being with it. But if you can't be in the re-experiencing of it, it's very difficult to heal. You can manage it better, but it's very difficult to heal. And that's brilliant, that's fine, right? But it's understanding where your priority of care for you is in this emotional turmoil. So I'm going to put this back up for you, right? I didn't put the self-soothing questions up because they're easy and we've just finished it. So I don't want to give you more stuff to look at and confuse you. So here we are. Yeah. Disunity. Emotional overwhelm, lack of disunity, lack of regulation, wrapping. And we understand core should be highlighted in red, because core isn't a principle in and of itself. It's an issue in and of itself. So for you that are looking at this now, what I'm hoping is that you understand the component parts and that you understand what you need to do first. And you understand where you might, and you know what, if it feels like you're eating an elephant, like where do you start? Choose one piece that you're drawn to, one piece of the work that you feel drawn to, and start there. And at least you'll make a start. If it feels like, oh my God, I could start anywhere, just choose maybe the easiest, softest option to lean in. Yeah. Just choose something that will create, it might even be co-regulation. It might be learning how to regulate. And the best way to regulate, because it doesn't tell you that, doesn't it? I left that out. Yes, self-regulation. Self-regulation is, what did I need to hear? What did I need to know? What voice did I need to hear it in? What was missing? So that's how you heal self-regulation. What was missing that I needed? And then learn to give it to yourself. What was missing? Again, it's the same as wrapping. Sorry, I missed that completely. I don't know how I missed that. It's the same as wrapping. Get specific about what you didn't hear and begin to give it to yourself. Specifics about what you needed, how you needed to hear it, and start to treat yourself, start to give yourself, start to change that voice. Now, can you imagine that word? You're unified. Yeah, you've done the wrapping, both general, specific. You've done the unwrapping. You've peeled away all of the layers, and that you can hold yourself with kindness, compassion. You can be the voice that you never had. Can you imagine where that emotional overwhelm goes? It shrinks. Now, does it shrink to the extent where you don't feel the original emotion? No. Where it leaves you is in the heart of the original emotion. Feeling it and seeing it and hearing it, possibly in its entirety for the first time. So this isn't healing of a core woundedness. This is access to it. This is access to the emotion that is trying to tell you something. Like Rachel's anger, like my nothingness. It had a message. It had something that it needed healed. It was a place from my childhood that I had not known, that needed heard and needed healed and needed soothed. And I couldn't get near it for the noise. I couldn't get near it for the emotional turmoil. I couldn't get close to it. So this is the proprietary work. I just want to be brutally honest and clear. This does not make healing easy. It makes it easier. Healing and easy don't come together because it's pain, but it makes it easier. It makes it easier. It takes away all that. But I can tell you, see, when you take away that emotional turmoil, healing is possible. But with it, it's you're just fighting. So I hope in the time that we've been together, I've done a good enough job for you, and that you understand, and you have an action plan, and you know what you're doing, and you know how to do it. If you fancy it, and if it feels like a fit, we start a 6-week course. We start the introduction next week. We break for Easter, and then we start the hardcore work in the week after Easter. Now, Leona, I'll get this wrong. I'll get it. Leona told me the prices, so I only know them because I wrote them down. It's £129 for 6 weeks. One off payment. You can do it in 2 payments if the 129 is too tight, and it's £74 for one payment, and then £74 for for the second payment. It runs across 6 weeks. It's live. It's me and yous. It's private. We're in a private group, and it's 6 full weeks. It's on a Wednesday evening. I think it's about 7:30. So it's a Wednesday evening. It's not during the day. It's a Wednesday evening. We did it deliberately so. And it's 6 weeks. And it's every single one of these principles. It's the unity principle. It's the wrapping principle. And it's the self-regulation principle. And it's not just theory. It's integration. It's the work that I did with Rachel last night. It's pushing at you. So you can come and sit in the class, but it's also integration. So it's live coaching. It's not, so it's very private. It's just us. Everything is recorded, and you have your own recording of it so that you can keep going back to it. All of everything that I've given you that I says, go Google, go look at regulation, go look at dorsal, go look at vagal nerve stuff. All of that's on the course. So every single piece of the puzzle, all of the unwrapping material, everything is in, all the self-soothing material, everything's in it. And for 6 weeks, I show up every Wednesday night and we grind it out, push, support each other to do the healing, work. We've made it really accessible financially because it's not a professional course. So any professionals here, this is not a professionally taught course. It is a boots on the ground, practical piece of work that is done at group. Now, there are only 20 places. I'll put up the details, Shirley. There's only 20 places simply because I have to ensure everybody's safety. So we only ever do, we cap everything at 20. So I would encourage you, if you think that you want further support, to come along and join us. Our groups are beautiful. They're lovely. And they're great, filled with great people, great supportive people, and loads of practitioners in it as well that give you extra support. You have it for a lifetime. So you go through the 6 weeks, it'll all be recorded. But if you wanted to go back to it, it's there for you in your academy, recorded for a lifetime, so you never lose it. So the detail, Leona's saying the details will be in your inbox when we're finished this evening. Look, I'd love to have every one of these. I'd love to work with these. I'd love to be working with these. It's at the minute, it's kind of the only way to work with me at an individual level, unless you're in the collective. So I'd love to take it further, and I'd love to see the transformation for you. I really genuinely mean that, because I know how hard this stuff, and I also know the stuff that it would make a difference to. So if that's a fit for you, I'd love to see you on the inside. If it's not, and you're going to work this alone, then I'm going to try and support you as best I can with all of the stuff we'll send out to you. We're going to keep the replays up for another while, so you can go back to it and look over it and make sure that you have all of the right information. So everything that I've told you to do here. If you haven't got a pen and paper at hand, and you can watch the replay again and write it all down again and make sure you put it into action. If you're working with somebody else, you can put it into action with them. So there's many options here. My intention was to help you understand what your emotional turmoil was, and to help you understand the specifics of it, and give you a plan of action. And I hope to God that I have completed that and done that well enough for you to feel at least that emotional overwhelm is not a you problem. It's not a you thing. It's not a weakness thing. It's not a me thing. It's not a oversensitive thing. It's a thing. It's a human thing. So welcome to the human race. Welcome, welcome, because everybody here that has participated in this, and there has been nearly 300 people that have signed up, are all singing from the same hymn sheet. So hopefully that was enough for you. If you want any more details about the course, let us know. Yes, Brita, thank you. Thanks. Was it nice to revisit that? All right. A lot of people, I know Anne was saying it was nice to revisit. A lot of people were saying it was amazing to revisit from having done this before. And I know Liz is here as well. She sent a message to say that the do it again was really, really beneficial. So thank you for your energy. Thanks Rachel. Thanks Claire. Thanks everybody. Take care. Very good, Ashton. Brilliant. I'm delighted. Listen, that's fantastic. Absolutely delighted. So I might see some of you on the inside, see the rest of you in the collective, and look after yourself and take care of yourself. All right. See you all soon. Bye. Brilliant, Grania. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Good. Good, Bernadette. I'm delighted. Good. Take care, Mags. See you later on. Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.